Hi everyone! Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I want to read before this year ends in 2024, before we get to 2025. And I have a pretty big list, so I tried to narrow down that list as much as I can to kind of like only talk about the ones that I think I'm actually gonna get to and just like my top priority ones that have been on my TBR list for a very long time. Hopefully I could, by the end of the year, say that I've read all of these books that I'm about to talk about. But if not, then that's okay too. These are just like the ones that I hope to get to, and it would be, I mean, that's the goal, is to read all of the books that I'm about to name, but if I don't, that's okay. So I'm gonna start off with a few summer books. I know like summer is kind of ending. We're in August now. I know a lot of people are already putting up their fall decorations. Some people wait till September for fall, but I feel like I can still, crank out some of these summer reads because there are a few that I didn't get to this summer just because there were just so many new releases and just other books that were already on my TBR. But the first one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I haven't read this book yet. I feel like this is like one of the books that's like 2024 summer romance book is like this book right now. It's like the book of the summer, I guess. And so I've heard great things about this book. I have been reading Abby's books more recently and I have really enjoyed them. So I am really excited about this one, and I've heard really great things that like the way this one is written and just like all of the characters, it's like some of her best work. But I definitely want to read this, like maybe not next because I'm in the middle of the Inheritance Game series, but like as soon as I wrap up that series, I'll probably try to hurry up and read this one before we officially go into fall. And then along with Abby Jimenez books, like I'm not sure, this is like the other one that I want to read, and it's the Happy Ever After playlist. I'm not sure if this is like a summer setting or not, but it might be like a fall setting. I'm not sure. If you read this book, no spoilers please, but like let me know, is this a summer read or is this like an any time of the year read? Because this is the only other physical copy of an Abby Jimenez book that I have, and so I figured I have this, I definitely want to read it. I've been enjoying her writing, so I think I could get around to it, but I definitely want to read Just for the Summer. Just for the Summer would be the priority, and then if I can like squeeze in another romance, then I'll probably squeeze in this one. Next, I feel like is like the last summer read, and that is The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hilderbrand. I haven't read a book by Ellen yet, and this is actually the only book I have by her, like the physical copy in my room on my bookshelf. And so I got this because I've been wanting to dive into her books and her work, and I've just heard great things about her writing and just everything about it. So I definitely want to read this one. This is definitely more of a summer read, so I would definitely have to dive into this one very, very soon, sooner rather than later. I do believe that I saw that one of her books is being turned into a movie and it's supposed to come out this year. Is that true? Because if so, then I might want to read the one that is being turned into a movie first so that I could like read it and then go see it in the theaters and then get to like her other books. But this is the one that I have. I'm not sure if this is the one that's being turned into a movie, but I really would like to get into one of her books by the end of this year, just so I don't have to wait until next summer to like start reading all of her other books, because I do believe all of her books is more like summery. So we'll probably be diving into this one very soon, and hopefully I can read it before we like officially get into fall. The next one, okay, that I have a physical copy of, I don't have the entire series, I just have the first book. And I'm kind of nervous about this one because I hear so many things about this series. I hear a lot of people love it and are obsessed with it, and then I hear other people are like, no, that's not for me, I don't like it that much. So I'm very confused if I'm gonna like this or not, but I am very intrigued. Like I just see it all over that I'm like, how could you not be intrigued? Without further ado, it's Magnolia Parks, and like I said, this is the only book out of the series that I currently have. I believe this is the first one. I hope this is the first one because it's the one I have currently. Obviously, like I said, I'm sure everyone here watching this video has seen this book, probably read this book. I'm probably the only one like that hasn't read this series because I feel like everyone's gotten to it already. But I definitely am intrigued. Like I want to know what's going on. Like I want to be a part of it. Like even if I like don't really like it that much, like I want to know what everyone else knows, and like I just want to be in the know. You know what I mean? Let me know, is this like a a summer read? Is it a fall winter read? Is it like just something that I can read at any point in the year? So I definitely am a mood reader, and so like the weather, the environment, like the season of the year definitely plays a role and like affects what kind of mood I'm in and like what kind of book I'm gonna reach for. So let me know if this is a book that I can like pick up anytime. Gosh, I am nervous to actually dive into this because I don't know, it's just the unknown. It's just the unknown. Okay, so next up is definitely one that I'm gonna read in the fall because I feel like it's more like fall, winter vibes. And that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. And this is a spin-off series from the Caravel trilogy. Let me know. I've heard so many mixed reviews, like if I should read that first and then dive into Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is another series that I feel like is super popular and like everyone is talking about and everyone loves. And so I've been wanting to start this. I actually like intended to start this last fall. I think that's when I bought this book. And then it just didn't happen because I had so many other series that I was just like, I had on my list that I was like in the middle of reading. And so I never got around to this. I mean, it's never left my mind. Like I definitely have been wanting to read this for so long, for like the past year, maybe even more, like even before I bought the book last year, like I had this, you know, in the forefront of my mind, like I want to read that book and I want to dive into the series. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. Just let me know, like, should I read the first series before I read this, or should I just like read this? I really don't know what to do, and I've kind of heard like mixed things. Okay, so the next book is definitely one that I'm gonna read in the fall or winter, one of those two, and it's a fantasy book. This is by, well, let me just show you and then I'll explain. But this is Legends of Lemuria by Ali Michelle. Ali Michelle is someone who has published poetry books, and this is her first official novel apart from the poetry books that she's published in the past. But yeah, first official novel, fantasy novel. I'm really excited about it. It actually came out in April and I did a pre-order on it and it came here in April. So I've had this for a few months, but I just haven't gotten around to it because I'm just like, I just kept envisioning myself sitting down with this book, you know, with like a cup of tea in the fall and like, you know, the weather's nice. And so I just was waiting for like the perfect fantasy moment to start this book. I'm so excited about it. I love her poetry books, at least what I've read so far. I haven't read every single thing that she's put out, but I do have one of her books on my shelf. And I am just like so excited to see just how this is written. Like I said, like the only thing I've read from her before are her poems. And so I'm just like so thrilled to like jump into a fantasy world that she created. I'm just like so excited and intrigued to see like what that's gonna look like and like her writing style, like how that's gonna come together in a fantasy novel rather than like a poetry book. And so yeah, I'm really excited about this. This has been a very anticipated read of mine for a very long time. And I'm really excited to finally get to it. I've had this, like I said, since April, and I've just been like holding out for the fall weather. So I'm definitely gonna get to this book very, very soon. And yeah, if you don't already know who she is, you should look her up. You should look up her poetry books, and yeah, hopefully maybe you should get this as well. I can't speak for it because I haven't read it obviously, but I have very high hopes. Like I just know that this is going to be a good read. The next book I have is also a fantasy book. This is Curse of Shadows and Thorns by L.J. Andrews. This is a book that I got as a Christmas gift last year. And like I said, like last year, I had so many books on my TBR that I wanted to read. Like I was in the middle of Throne of Glass series, which is an 8-book series. And then as soon as I finished Throne of Glass, I jumped into Crescent City, which was like already the plan, because if you start reading Sarah J. Maas's books, like you're committing to the entire thing. She has 3 series, if you don't know, and so to read one is really a commitment to read all 3. And so I knew as soon as like I finished Throne of Glass, I would be jumping into Crescent City. And then I just like had all of these other books that, you know, either there were like new releases or just like books that were already like just very high up on my priority list on my TBR. And so when I got this for Christmas, I was just like really intrigued, but I was just like, oh my gosh, when am I gonna get around to this book? Because like I said, I was in the middle of Throne of Glass, which is like, if you've read Throne of Glass or any of Sarah J. Maas's series, like, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to digest, and it's a huge commitment. So I couldn't even like think about other fantasy books last year, like in the fall and winter. And so I feel like this is the time that I'm actually gonna get around to this. I haven't seen people like talk about this book or this series much. Like, it's definitely not one that has like popped up on my For You page or anything like that. So I'm really curious, without giving any spoilers, like let me know if you read this series and like what you thought of it. But yeah, like I said, I haven't really seen much about this series, so I couldn't even tell you what it's about. I just know that it's fantasy. Obviously, you can even tell from the cover that it's fantasy. But if you've read this, let me know what you thought, or if you liked it. Like, yeah, just tell me without any spoilers in the comments. Okay, so those are all of the physical books that I have that are on my TBR list. So now we're gonna get into the ones that I don't physically have, but are still very high up on my TBR list that I wanna get around to, like I said, before the year ends. So this one I'm like really, really, really excited about, and that is the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series. And I can't lie, I was a little bit confused about this because I've never read any of the books. I know, I'm sure there's not a single person watching this that hasn't read those two series. So I feel like I'm very late to the game, but I'm really excited. I've heard great things about it. And like also, I never see like any like fan work or like anything like that. Or maybe I am seeing it and I just like don't know that it is that. Like, it doesn't register in my brain. But I feel like I don't see too much of that on my For You page or like fan art or anything like that. But I do feel like anytime I watch someone and they talk about like their top 5 all-time books or like book series, like this is always either number 1 or like a close second. And so I am like, okay, it's time. Like, I need to dive into these books, and why wait any further? Let's just get around to them this year, or at least before the year ends. But I had to do some research. So it's 2 series, correct? It's the Addicted series, and then it's the Calloway Sisters series. And you can read the Addicted series first and then the Calloway Sisters, or you can kind of like tandem read. I believe it's like, is it the same characters but in the same world? And I don't know, maybe I should just do some more research. But I honestly, like this morning before I even like looked into the reading order and all of that for this video, I was like, are they the same series? Like, why is it just one series called Addicted Calloway, or is it 2 series? And I, yeah, obviously figured out it's 2 series, but that's how little I knew about it. I just know that everyone raves about these 2 series. I feel like I'm saying series like 100 times in this video. But anyways, I am just so excited to finally get into them, and I just feel like I've been missing something huge this entire time. Like, I've just been missing out. So yeah, I feel like I can't wait any further to read that series or those 2 series. So I'm really excited about that. The next that like, this is a very hopeful one because I feel like it is more of a summer read, and that's just a lot of like summer books to be kind of jamming into August and kind of September, because I feel like September is kind of going into fall. I feel like it's just like me just being super hopeful that I can kind of like jam in these summer reads before we officially get into the fall season. But the next that I have on my list is the Chestnut Spring series. This is something that I was supposed to start in June. I like did like a pick my TBR for June video, and the first book in the Chestnut Spring series is what one of the things landed on, because I did like a spin the wheel for picking my TBR. And yeah, it was on my June TBR and I didn't get around to it, so I was like, oh, I'll just get to it in July. I didn't get to it in July. Now we're in August. That's another thing. I feel like I'm missing out on this series. Like, everyone loves this series, and so I definitely would like to try. Like, that's a very, like, me being very, very, very hopeful and optimistic. I would like to try to start and finish the series before we're officially in the fall time. Like I said, that's putting a lot of books on my radar and on my TBR to finish like within a month. So we'll see. We'll see. I hopefully will be able to get to the Chestnut Spring series as well. And if not, then I'll just like save it for like the springtime for next year. So the next book that I would like to get to is The Nightingale. by Kristen Hanna, and this is kind of like out of my comfort zone-ish a little bit because this is a historical fiction, and I don't really read historical fiction. The only thing that I can think of that was like historical fiction is Divine Rivals, but it's also like mixed with fantasy, so it's like a historical fiction fantasy. And I don't think that I've read anything that's like just historical fiction, so I feel like this is branching out a little bit, but I've heard great things about that book, and I do really want to branch out and read other genres other than fantasy and contemporary romance. I feel like, yeah, I just feel like there's so many good books out there, and there's so many books out there that are like potentially my favorite books. I just haven't got to them yet, but they're like sitting on bookshelves in different genres, like in different sections that I don't normally shop at. I'm really excited about that one. Like I said, I've heard great things about it, and I'm really excited for this to be kind of like an opportunity, like a stepping stone to get into historical fiction and see if I like it. But next up I have the Naturals series, and this is the same author that wrote the Inheritance Games series, which the Inheritance Games series is one that I am currently in the middle of reading, like I said, so I'm really excited. I've heard so many people say like they love the Inheritance Games, but like they love the Naturals even more, like it's even better. And so I'm really enjoying the Inheritance Game series. I'm on the second book of that series, and if the Naturals is even better, then like sign me up, because I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm reading right now. So like if there's a series that she wrote that's even better than that, I definitely want to read it. And it definitely sounds like a really fun read. And so I'm really excited to get around to that one. Next on my list is A Little Life, and I'm not even gonna try to attempt to pronounce the author's name. Maybe it's a really easy pronunciation, but just looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna attempt that because I will definitely butcher it. But this is a book that I've just heard really great things about. I know people find it really hard to review this book because it's like a heavier book, and there's lots of like heavy topics and trigger warnings. And so I know people are kind of like, you know, a little bit more delicate in the way that they promote or share or like rave about this book. I definitely feel like, I don't know, I'm just intrigued. Like I want to dive into it. I see so many people like this book makes them like so emotional, and they're like sobbing, and you know what, I just feel like I need one of those books on my TBR list for the rest of the year. Like I need a book to just completely destroy and break me. So I'm really excited to dive into that one. Like I said, like if you haven't read that book, I don't know how much trigger warnings like you should be aware of, because I haven't read it myself, but like I have heard that there's trigger warnings. So I just wanted to say that in case you are using this video as like inspiration to add to your TBR, just know that I've heard there are major trigger warnings. Can't speak personally about it, but because I haven't read it, but major trigger warnings for A Little Life. So just make sure you look into that. And yeah, I'm ready for my heart to be crushed. And I've heard that book will definitely do it. So I'm looking forward to finally reading it and just like knowing what it's about. Next is the Remnant trilogy by Mary E. Pearson. She wrote the Dance of Thieves duology, which I love. It's one of my favorite like fantasy books, is the Dance of Thieves duology. So you have Dance of Thieves and then Vow of Thieves, and I said like one of my top favorite fantasy reads. And so I discovered after reading Dance of Thieves duology that it's actually a spinoff from the Remnant trilogy. And so I've had that in my mind, like I definitely want to go back and read the original trilogy. And I've had this like on my list for over a year now. Like I said, I just haven't gotten around to it because either I was in the middle of a series or just had too many books on my TBR. So I'm really excited. I definitely want to get into that trilogy this year for sure. I've heard that it is really good, and I believe like in a past video I've talked about this, that I read the Dance of Thieves duology, but I never read the original Remnant trilogy. And I believe one of you commented on that video and was like, you definitely should go back and read the Remnant trilogy, because it's a series that's really good that not a lot of people are talking about. Like it just hasn't caught traction with like the book community on either like TikTok or YouTube, but apparently it's really good and really worth reading as far as fantasy reads go. So I'm really excited about that one. So the last on the list is the Lightlark series, and I have heard really great things about this. series. I've heard that it's like really good. Some people have compared it to like if you have enjoyed ACOTAR. I don't really know the specific comparisons, like if it's the characters or like the tropes or like the plot, but I've heard like if you're looking for other fantasy reads, like this one, Lightlark, like I said, is like way up there with recommendations of like other fantasy reads to get into. I'm not sure what it's about, like I haven't done my research on it, but I keep seeing it over and over, and I have a friend who has started reading it, says that her friend told her she needs to read it because it's really good. So I am like, yeah, maybe I should get around to it this year and dive into it, because once I finish all of my other fantasy reads that I have on this list, like I will be needing something else to dive into. So I feel like this would be the perfect one. Okay, so that is everything on the list. Please, like, if you've read any of these books, like without giving spoilers, like drop some motivation of like why I should read any of these, because some of them I'm like really excited to get into, and then others I'm like a little bit more like hesitant, I don't know, lack of a better term, but just kind of like, I don't know, I feel a little bit more nervous jumping into some of these like popular series like Magnolia Parks or like the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. So just like drop some motivation without giving me any spoilers of like why I should read it, or if it's like gonna change my life, or maybe even just drop like a little simple quote without, again, giving any spoilers, so I can have motivation to jump into it. See, I'm definitely a mood reader, and I definitely kind of like pick books off of like how motivated I am to dive into it. Like if it's like, if I've heard it's really, really good, or like if I just kind of understand a little bit more about the story and like what kind of read it is. I'm excited to like look back on this video once the new year is here and I can see how many books from this list I actually did read. So that's gonna be really interesting to look back on. If you have any other recommendations that you think I should prioritize before these are like ones that I personally have on my radar, but if you're like, no, you definitely should like add this to the list, then let me know, because I'm always looking to add more to my TBR list, no matter how long of a list it gets. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!